What's up guys? So the Switch has just turned 2 years old and it has quickly become one of my favorite games consoles of all time. I want to mark the occasion of its second birthday by basically talking about the best games on the Switch. It originally started out as a top 10, but there are way too many games to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the usual top 10 list, some honorable mentions, and I'm going to talk about some of the games that I don't personally haven't personally played, that I think probably deserve to be in anyone's top 10 list. I also want to do something a little different, guys. For my top 10, for the initial top 10 part of the video, let's just scrub out the 3 games that everybody's going to pick because it's kind of boring, right? So if you have a Switch, you get Zelda. That's what you do, right? You don't wait for someone's recommendation, you just get Breath of the Wild. So let's get that one out there already. You're probably already gonna buy Smash Brothers Ultimate, so let's just assume that one's in everybody's top 10 list. And Super Mario Odyssey is incredible. Look, if we just remove those 3, we might have a little bit more of an interesting top 10 list. But those 3, get those by default, okay? Don't wait for anyone's recommendation, don't watch any YouTube videos, just get those 3 games, and then we'll talk about the 10 other games that you should almost certainly buy. Starting out at number 10, guys, ARMS. Now, I know this one is a controversial one because some people don't think this is a very good game, and I can't see why. It looks amazing, I love the music, but more than anything else, Nintendo has crafted a brand new style of fighting game. This feels unique to play. It's full of strategy, it's really fun. Me and a friend played it in 2-player local, like the old school days, for 6 months. Almost every night, and we had an absolute blast. And once you get better at the game, its layers of strategy unfold, and it's actually a really good fighting game. So ARMS is definitely one to get. Super Bomberman R, not necessarily a game that would appear on many people's top 10 lists for the Switch, especially since there have been so many games on the Switch to buy. But I love Bomberman games. I consider Bomberman to be one of the sort of pillars, the central pillars of all gaming, like Pac-Man and Super Mario. And all you need is a good Bomberman game for an amazing night of multiplayer with friends over. So Bomberman R, I think, actually launched pretty bad, but they patched in, changing the camera angles. I think it used to have an isometric camera angle, which, and look, how can you ruin Bomberman? If it isn't broke, don't fix it. Bomberman R, it has 8-player multiplayer, you get 8 Joy-Cons, you flip them on their side, and 8 people just play Bomberman, and it's amazing, so just get it. Mario and Rabbids Battle Kingdom. Now this game, first I was a bit skeptical, and I think everyone was, at least when the game was rumored, right? Why do we want a Mario game with Rabbids in it? We don't, right? But it turns out we were all wrong. This game is brilliant. I love the sort of real-time strategy, grid-based battle games that Nintendo makes. Fire Emblem I've never been too crazy about, but Advance Wars I really miss. And Mario and Rabbids was the first game on Switch that kind of scratched that itch. So great graphics, amazing music. I love the way it looks. It's just it's somewhat Ubisoft in the way that it's kind of repetitive in certain areas. But as you get towards the end of the game, the levels spread out, the strategy becomes more important. So give that one a go, guys. Number 7, Sonic Mania. Now, it seems almost a bit of a shame to say that an independent developer, a fan essentially, has made a better Sonic game than Sega has managed to make for decades. But Sonic Mania is, I believe, the best Sonic game since Sonic 3. And I'm actually quite a big fan of Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast, but if you've been put off of Sonic games in the last couple decades, all of the 3D glitchy games and the 2D games that have been pretty good, but they've not been quite the same style as the Genesis ones, play Sonic Mania. It's essentially a sequel to the Genesis era of Sonic games, and it's absolutely brilliant. And the music in this game is ridiculously good. Wargroove is more of a, I wouldn't say clone, homage to Advance Wars, but it is, for all intents and purposes, an Advance Wars game with a different theme, reskin essentially. It plays exactly like Nintendo's old wartime strategy game, but it adds several cool new features. It has online multiplayer, cross-compatible with the Xbox and PC versions. It has a map editor, but not just that, and a full campaign editor that lets you make your own cutscenes and text with a dialogue for characters. So guys, if you like this style of game, please give this one a go. It's one of my favorites. It's incredible. Now, on first glance, Celeste might not be a game that you think you would go for. It's a fairly standard looking platformer, but it is absolutely amazing in the way that it is this like hyper difficult, super challenging platform game in which you die a lot, but you respawn and retry instantly. And so it has this Super Meat Boy style of appeal to it, where you essentially die 100 times in a couple of minutes and you eventually get through a room. But you star a character who has to climb a mountain, and she has like a boost mechanic that lets her get through levels in surprisingly intricate levels with these relatively simple moves. And the way that as the levels progress, they get more and more complicated, and it pushes your skills more and more to the edge. And the game has this really cool story about the main character is actually struggling with depression, and she's in a battle with herself. You know, I don't really remember too clearly, but guys, if you want a game like the old days that would really push your Twitch skills to the limit, check out Celeste. Snipperclips, I think, is one of the most iconic games of the Switch generation. It is a really amazing two-player, best played in co-op. You can play it single player, but don't even bother with that. It's a two to four player co-op game in which you snip pieces of your partner's bodies to form shapes, and use those shapes in interesting ways to complete really cool physics-based puzzles in these crazy, wacky levels. And so you find yourself struggling to come up with solutions, and then someone has a really cool idea and you start making intricate cuts with each other, and you end up with a complete mess. But it's such a wacky game. It's so funny. There is no other game on Switch that has had me laughing out loud as much as this one. Alright guys, now for my top 3 games that aren't Mario, Zelda, or Smash Brothers. So number 3 in my list is Pokemon Let's Go. Now this is somewhat of a bit of a surprise for me. When they announced Pokemon Let's Go, it's essentially a remake of Yellow, but with the Pokemon Go, or some elements from Pokemon Go, infused into it from the cell phone game of 100 billion players. Now that to me doesn't sound so great because I wasn't a big fan of Pokemon Go, but the parts that they pulled over actually improved the game. Now I don't particularly like random battles, and in this game you can see the Pokemon on the overworld, which I think is absolutely awesome. And when you touch them, that initiates the fight, and then even though you don't get to battle them, you just throw Pokeballs at them. And you know what? I just think it streamlines the game. When you want to get from one place to another, when you're trying to get through dungeons, you're trying to get from one town to another town on the opposite side of the world, you don't have to worry about random encounters. You don't have to worry about trawling through loads and loads of Pokemon battles. And it actually, I think, helps to heighten the excitement of a really tough, really tense battle. Now, the game skews a little bit on the easier side, especially if you buy one of the Pokeball controllers. You can put a Pokemon in there and walk around. That's pretty cool, but it levels up the Pokemon really quickly and you end up over-leveled essentially. But this is the entirety of Pokemon Yellow, which is one of my favorite games. It looks amazing. The battle system's all been streamlined. If you're a Pokemon fan, this one's a good one to go for. And if you don't like the sound of the Pokemon encounters not having battles, there's a new Pokemon game coming out this year, Sword and Shield, so stay tuned for that one. Number 2 on my list is Mario Kart 8. Now I know, it's a remake of a Wii U game, I get it, but one of the most important parts of any Mario Kart is the battle mode, and for all intents and purposes, the Wii U version didn't have a battle mode. It had a mode on the title screen that said battle in it, but when you went in there, it was essentially a tacked on mode where you shoot weapons at each other on the tracks, on the racetracks, and it was terrible. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch adds a proper battle mode to the game, as well as including all of the DLC. And Mario Kart is just another one of those pillars of Nintendo. If you own a Nintendo console, you own the Mario Kart game that goes with it. There are no questions. There is no debate. And Mario Kart is easily my favorite Mario Kart game of all time, and I've always adored Mario Kart. Throughout all of the generations, I've always adored Mario Kart. This one is the best one. That's saying a lot. So if you own a Switch, download this. Don't even buy it physically. Download it. It needs to be on your Switch at all times, and it needs to be playable at the drop of a hat at all times. Number one on my list of games that isn't Zelda, Mario, and Smash Brothers is Splatoon 2. Now this would come as a bit of a surprise to me, even because I didn't play Splatoon 1. Not only that, I don't particularly play multiplayer shoot 'em ups too much. I've dabbled in Call of Duty. I loved Halo, but multiplayer shooters, generally speaking, I avoid. I'm more of an offline player. I love games with storylines and big campaigns to get involved in. Splatoon 2 totally surprised me. Now I kind of got Splatoon 2 because I wanted more games for the Switch at launch, right? Like when you get a new console, I just want a nice healthy library of games. So because Splatoon 2 launched quite early in the Switch's life cycle, that was sort of the impetus for me to go and buy it, and it's absolutely amazing. If you haven't played Splatoon before, it's a team-based multiplayer shoot 'em up with a paint mechanic that is used in different ways depending on the mode that you're playing. So in sort of the main mode in the game, the team with the most paint on the floor is the one that wins. Now, of course, it's still important to kill the other players on the other team, because when they die, they have to wait to respawn and then get back into the game. And that gives your team time to cover the map with the paint of your team's color. At the same time, there are special weapons. You can outfit your characters with different clothes that don't just look cool, but also have special powers, such as shorter respawn times or quicker movement, lowering damage or increasing damage of certain weapons. They are attribute modifiers that help you in the heat of battle. There are so many different modes in this game, and they're so unique compared to, the standard fare of capture the flag and team deathmatch and all that stuff. This game is inventive and creative about it. It also has a single player mode that was actually quite fun. It's not as fun as the multiplayer, I don't think. It has some really interesting levels in it, some cool puzzles, and it's quite challenging too, so that's really good fun. And by the way, guys, another game with incredible music. Alright guys, so that was my top 10. Of course, the 3 games that I left out, Super Mario Odyssey is absolutely one of the best Mario games of all time, and the first proper sequel to Super Mario 64, which is one of my favorite games of all time. A super acrobatic Mario gets a new special power with his hat that essentially allows you to control your enemies, or you become your enemy, and you can play as a variety of the enemies in the Mario universe. Including taking over like a bullet bill and then flying across gaps, or taking over a Goomba and then stacking on top of other Goombas to reach new platforms. It's a super creative game, as have Mario games been in the past 10-15 years. Every level seems like it has a different gameplay mechanic and introduces new ideas that you've never seen before. So if you like Super Mario Galaxy, the creativity of the worlds there, Nintendo's absolutely on point with Super Mario Odyssey. If I have one complaint about the game, it's that there are maybe too many stars to find, too many moons, sorry, they're not stars this time, they're moons. Not all of them feel as special to get, but there are so many magical moments in this game. Incredible looking worlds, awesome music as usual from Mario games. Just check it out. I'm no Smash Brothers Pro player, but Smash Brothers Ultimate is so packed with content and levels, characters, and awesome music that, for me, it's my favorite Smash Brothers game of all time. Smash Brothers Ultimate is easily one of the biggest Nintendo games ever made. It is so full of content, it's almost overwhelming. More levels than I'll probably even ever get to play. I think almost 80 characters once the DLC characters come out. I think it might even break the 80 mark. It has hundreds and hundreds of music tracks. It's just an absolutely immense game. I know there is a very hardcore following for this game, and they'll probably analyze the response times of certain characters and the minute details of the balance of each player in the game and all that stuff. But honestly, I just jump in the game, I turn on all the items, maximum craziness, and I play it essentially like Mario Kart. It's just a big old ball of crazy for me, and I absolutely love it. And the fact that this one is portable with no compromise No downgrade to the graphics like the 3DS version. You just pick it up out of the dock and walk away with it, and then you can play Smash Brothers, this incredible toy box, Nintendo toy box. Anywhere is amazing. So Smash Brothers is absolutely deserving of a must-buy for this console. And of course, we can't do a best games on Nintendo Switch without at least talking a little bit about Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This is my favorite game of all time. Absolutely my favorite game of all time. Breath of the Wild has a world that feels so alive that it's ruined other open world games for me. I can't go and play another open world game now if the rain doesn't put out fires and fires don't melt ice and wood doesn't float realistically, and you know, rocks rolling down hills when you push them, large fires creating updrafts in the air for you to float on, and all of these things just come together to make a world that feels full and alive and real. And then when you add to that all of the Zelda charm, you know, the typical kind of the characters, the story in this game is a little thin, but it is enough for me to drive my intrigue through this massive game of, I think I put in 200 hours. One of the other things I love about this game is instead of just throwing you into a world with 150 icons that you essentially sweep up, it's like the open world games these days are like garbage disposal simulators. You essentially go into a world and you have 1,000 objectives marked on your map and you just go around and hoover them all up. Zelda forces you to make your own map full of objectives. So you don't just climb a tower to unlock 100 things on the map. You only reveal that section of the map, but then you have to use your own line of sight to scope out your surroundings and see interesting things in the landscape and tag them yourself to go and check out. And that just heightens the feeling of exploration and discovery, because you tagged it because it's interesting looking, but you don't know what you're going to find there, unlike most other open world games where it's specifically tagged as a person who's going to give you a mission or a treasure chest, you know, or a cave or something like that. This is a game that pushes you through its world through curiosity. It's pure curiosity that drives you through this. There are no objective markers on there, and 200 hours later, then you have a map full of icons of things that you found, not things that you need to find. Breath of the Wild will absolutely go down as one of the best games of all time, and for me personally, it's my favorite game of all time. Alright guys, so I have some honorable mentions. These are games that weren't on my top 10 list. They're not the 3 must-haves, but they're games that I bought and I love, and I just wanted to highlight them to you. Starlink, incredible space adventure. You can play as Star Fox and you can take off from a planet, go into space, fly to another planet and land again. Need I say more? It's sci-fi heaven. Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. It's essentially a new Castlevania game, but it's more in the style of the Super Nintendo Castlevanias that were side-scrolling kind of action platformers, not the Castlevania that you might know from Symphony of the Night, where it's like Metroid and you explore a huge world. That's why it didn't make my top 10 list. I absolutely love Metroid games. Also, I would have maybe placed it a little higher if it wasn't NES style graphics. I really like the Super NES style aesthetics, you know, more on the 16-bit side. These graphics are a little dated, can be very challenging, a little frustrating, but really, really, really cool game. Steamworld Dig 2 is actually more of a Metroid style game where you essentially go out and explore a deep underground cave. You dig down into an underground cave and explore new areas, and you bring back resources back to the surface and use those to improve your abilities and your powers, and then go back down and venture further into an increasingly dangerous world. It's a super interesting game with a unique twist on the Metroidvania formula, so if you're a big fan of those kind of games, Steamworld Dig 2 is definitely one to get. Mario Tennis Aces is easily one of the best Mario Tennis games in a long time, and that's good because I'm kind of a fan of tennis games, I've realized. I've played a lot of tennis games over the years and didn't really realize until recently when I got Aces. It looks great, the music's awesome, and now it's fully portable, which is awesome. I'm so glad I can take this with me anywhere. Doom on Switch is definitely not the best place to play it, right? If you have a PS4, if you have a PC, go and play it on those machines. But if you don't have those machines, or you want a really good first-person shooter for your Switch, Doom is absolutely incredible. It's an amazing revival of the old school series that absolutely revolutionized first-person shooters for PC gamers. No complications, no puzzles, no crazy mazes. You just run through levels, shooting the crap out of demons, and it's so much fun. And it looks awesome even on the Switch. So definitely check that out if you want a really cool first-person shooter for the Switch. Stardew Valley is a game you could just get lost in for absolutely months. It's essentially a Harvest Moon sort of farm simulator with RPG mechanics and dungeon crawling thrown in. So it's such a massive, immense game. And the fact that it's still so popular after having been out for quite a few years on the PC side is testament to how good this game is. So definitely one of the best indie games on the Switch. And Ikaruga, now I had to just sneak this one in here because it's one of my personal favorite games of all time. I love 2D scrolling shoot 'em ups, and Ikaruga is arguably the best one ever made. It's the spiritual sequel to Radiant Silvergun, one of the most expensive Sega Saturn games you can buy, and it kind of mixes puzzle elements into bullet hell because you have to flip the color of your ship over from light to dark to change your immunity to the two colors of bullets, and you have to figure out when and where to do this properly to get through the levels. It's insanely difficult. I'm still working on this one, but it's incredible that it's portable now, so I absolutely love this game. I just want to quickly mention 5 games that I think could have easily been on anyone's top 10 list, but I don't personally own them for a variety of reasons, but I just want to give them a mention. Super Mario Party is one of the best Mario Party games in years, and everybody knows Mario Party, right? Crazy, crazy couch multiplayer game. And this is one of the best, and now it's totally portable with Joy-Cons, you flip them on their side, loads of players. It looks like great fun, just haven't managed to get around to getting it yet. Blossom Tales is a total homage to A Link to the Past and that era of top-down 2D Zelda. Good news is, if you're excited about that kind of game, Nintendo has announced the Link's Awakening remake. So if you're super excited for that, Blossom Tales is a good game to get to fill the gap between now and that game's release. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 looks like an absolutely amazing, massive JRPG that I just don't have time to do, honestly. Those huge open worlds look so incredible, and I'm sure that this is a great game, but it's not one I've had a chance of getting, so maybe at some point in the future, but for now, I'm just going to keep it on the back burner. Bayonetta 2 is another game I'm absolutely certain I would love. I really, really enjoyed the first game, and I love these crazy Japanese, insane action brawlers. Bayonetta 2 is probably one of the best ones out there, and I've just never gotten around to buying it. Really not sure why. So you saw my top 10 snipper clips. Super Bomberman R and ARMS are all amazing games to be played locally, local multiplayer, like party games. Overcooked 2 should definitely be in my collection. I don't know why it isn't. I guess I'm just waiting for Christmas this year to play with friends and family when they come by. That tends to be the time of the year that I mostly play these local multiplayer games. So I'm definitely gonna get Overcooked 2. It looks incredible. I just haven't got around to it yet. All right, guys, video's too long already. Just gonna wrap this up real quick. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any suggestions, any games I missed, please leave them in the comments below. If I see games come up quite often, I'll put them in the description just so that we can sort of compile the best games for Switch. And by now you should have a really huge list of games to go out and download and buy for your Switch if you just got one. And if you have had one for a while and you missed out on any of these games, go and check them out. There's loads of great demos on the Nintendo store. So just go online, download a bunch of demos and check them out. Thanks again for watching. If you want to help me grow the channel, please subscribe, like the video, leave a comment below, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.